Millions of families thought theme parks were untouchable until now. In just 1 year, over 60 million visitors vanished, and the entire industry is scrambling to explain what happened. Empty pathways, shuttered attractions, and silent midways paint a picture nobody wanted to believe. But here's the part corporate PR won't tell you. 7 major US parks are now facing real shutdown risks, and the warning signs are multiplying fast. From sudden budget cuts to evaporating attendance, the cracks are spreading everywhere. And the scariest part, most people still haven't noticed. So what caused this meltdown, and which parks may never recover? Six Flags St. Louis. Tucked into the Missouri hills, this once reliable summer staple now carries the weight of years without meaningful reinvestment. For many families across Missouri and Illinois, this park once symbolized dependable summer traditions, simple fun, and affordable escapes from daily routines. Yet the past several seasons have revealed noticeable strain, exposing long-standing issues that now shape every visit. Aging structures, fading paint, and quieter walkways signal a park moving toward uncertainty rather than renewed momentum. Much of the challenge stems from sustained underinvestment. While other parks in the chain received new coasters, modernized plazas, or upgraded entertainment, this location saw its capital budgets narrowed year after year. Routine maintenance still occurs, but the scale rarely matches what guests expect from a major amusement destination. Visitors who return after long gaps often notice how little has changed, creating a sense that progress has slowed to a crawl rather than driving toward a vibrant future. Attendance trends reflect that shift. Crowds that once filled midways now arrive in smaller numbers, especially on traditionally busy weekends. Families balancing rising costs look for destinations that feel fresh, well-maintained, and worth the investment of time and travel. When a park falls behind competitors, offering sharper attractions or stronger theming, hesitation grows. Over time, hesitation becomes routine, and routine becomes decline. This steady slide has placed increasing pressure on operations already stretched thin. The guest experience bears the weight of these pressures. Shorter operating hours, sporadic ride closures, and visible staffing shortages shape days that once felt effortless. Food locations operate with reduced menus, entertainment schedules shrink, and seasonal events vary widely in quality. None of these issues alone defines a park's trajectory, but together they paint a picture of a destination working harder to maintain basic expectations instead of focusing on long-term revitalization that could restore confidence and energy. Community sentiment reflects mixed emotions. Many locals hold deep affection for the park, remembering school trips, summer passes, and evenings spent watching fireworks across the hills. Yet even supportive voices acknowledge that the experience no longer carries the momentum it once did. Pride has become paired with concern, and concern grows louder as corporate strategies lean more heavily on cost-cutting than creative expansion. A park with strong regional roots risks being overshadowed by destinations evolving with far greater ambition. Still, the potential for renewal remains if leadership commits to a clearer path. The park holds land, history, and a community large enough to sustain meaningful growth. What it lacks is direction. Guests want assurance that improvements are coming and that the experience will evolve rather than fade. The next park on this list faces a different challenge, driven by a sudden disruption instead of a gradual decline. Time will tell. If you want deeper breakdowns on how these closures could reshape vacations, jobs, and entire communities, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Your support helps keep these investigations going and ensures you stay ahead of the changes hitting the theme park industry. Carowinds. A crack in a towering coaster support did more than halt a ride. It shook the confidence of an entire region. For decades, this park carried a reputation for reliability, clean operation, and steady growth. Families trusted it, enthusiasts praised it, and in a region that often felt overlooked by the bigger coastal attractions, Carowinds stood tall as a rare success story. But the moment the structural failure on Fury 325 hit national news, everything changed. One cracked support beam turned a celebrated coaster into the center of a nationwide conversation about safety, oversight, and corporate responsibility. That moment shook confidence in a way no marketing campaign could recover quickly from. The footage of the shaking track, recorded by an ordinary guest, spread across the country before the park even responded. Inspections followed. Investigations followed. Temporary closures followed. And while the engineering fix eventually arrived, the emotional fix never did. Families hesitated. Schools reconsidered field trips. Even longtime pass holders admitted they needed time before trusting the park again. A single video had done what no competitor ever could. It rewired the public perception of a park once viewed as steady and dependable. Yet the structural incident was only the surface. Behind the scenes, Carowinds found itself caught in the uncertainty of a massive corporate merger. The joining of Cedar Fair and Six Flags meant shifting priorities, reallocated budgets, and projects frozen until a unified plan could emerge. A park that once moved confidently now waits for decisions made hundreds of miles away. New attractions that once seemed guaranteed are now question marks. Maintenance cycles that relied on predictable plans now face new constraints. Every department, from entertainment to landscaping, feels the tension of a transition that arrived at the worst possible time. Meanwhile, the guest experience has felt the strain. Seasonal staffing shortages linger, food service waits grow longer, portions shrink, operating hours shift more often than they should. All these small changes create the sense that the park is managing turbulence rather than building momentum. And while classic attractions still have devoted fans, a park cannot rely on nostalgia alone when trust has been shaken. Carowinds is not beyond saving. It has land, history, regional loyalty, and the potential for a strong rebound. But potential is only potential. Guests want certainty, safety, and value. For a park once known for confidence, hesitation is now its greatest enemy. The next park on this list reveals how uncertainty can spread far beyond a single ride and reshape the future of an entire destination. Knott's Berry Farm. What was once the definition of California charm now finds itself wrestling with moments that challenged its sense of safety and stability. For decades, it managed to balance nostalgia and progress, offering just enough new attractions to stay relevant while protecting the character that made it stand apart from larger rivals. Yet, in recent years, the park has faced a steady shift that is no longer subtle, reshaping how guests experience a place once rooted in warmth and reliability. The most visible turning point arrived when several large crowd incidents forced the park to shut down early on tense summer nights. These moments, captured on social media and spread quickly across the country, painted a picture of a park losing control of its atmosphere. Families who once felt comfortable bringing children after sunset suddenly questioned whether the environment still matched the values that built its legacy. Security was increased, rules tightened, and operations adjusted, but the damage to public perception lingered longer than expected. Attendance patterns reflect these concerns. The park still attracts steady crowds, yet the consistency that defined earlier decades has softened. Visitors who once held annual passes now hesitate, weighing the value against rising prices and a guest experience affected by staffing challenges, longer waits at food stands, and occasional ride downtime. These factors do not destroy a theme park outright, but they erode confidence slowly, creating doubts where certainty once lived. Guests want stability, and stability feels less predictable today. The broader situation grows more complicated under the shifting leadership of the newly merged Cedar Fair and Six Flags companies. Budget allocations, long-term expansion plans, and operational priorities now sit within a corporate structure undergoing significant transformation. This uncertainty places Knott's Berry Farm in a position where decisions that shape its future may depend on distant boardrooms rather than local insight. Projects remain under review, and the pace of improvement lacks the clarity guests long enjoyed. The park's historic areas, once its strongest emotional anchors, now show signs of needing thoughtful refurbishment. Ghost Town still carries charm, but wear and aging details signal a space overdue for meaningful investment. Seasonal events continue to attract loyal fans, yet even these celebrations increasingly rely on familiar formulas rather than ambitious new concepts. When a park leans too heavily on its past, it risks allowing that past to overshadow the need for renewal. Still, hope remains woven into the park's foundation. The setting, the history, and the emotional connection many Californians hold provide fertile ground for a turnaround. Knott's Berry Farm can reclaim its identity, but doing so requires more than minor updates. The next entry on this list reflects another park facing challenges rooted not in nostalgia, but in a deeper transformation of public expectations. SeaWorld San Diego. After a decade of shifting public expectations, this coastal landmark continues searching for a clear identity in a changed world. For decades, families saw this place as a dependable source of wonder, education, and close-up marine experiences that felt almost impossible to find elsewhere. Yet, over the past several years, the park has struggled to regain the momentum it once held, working through shifting public expectations, financial strain, and an identity that grows less certain with each passing season. One of the most enduring challenges comes from the long shadow cast by controversies that began more than a decade ago. Even though the park has made strong efforts to move forward, the emotional impact of those years continues to shape guest perception. Attendance shows periods of slight recovery, but those gains rarely hold for extended stretches. New attractions and revised presentations have been introduced, and conservation messaging has become a defining pillar. Yet the identity, once rooted in large-scale animal shows, no longer carries the same strength. Longtime visitors who remember the earlier era find themselves unsure about the park's direction, while newer guests sometimes struggle to understand what the destination represents in its current form. Operational pressure adds another layer of difficulty. Staffing shortages influence food service, ride capacity, and entertainment scheduling, creating days that feel stretched thin. Maintenance demands rise each year as aging structures compete with newer installations for resources. Guests notice when smaller details fade, such as reduced landscaping, limited menus, or attractions operating at partial strength. Though minor individually, these elements combine to create an impression of a park focused more on maintaining stability than pursuing bold reinvention. Seasonal events still bring healthy crowds, but even these offerings tend to lean on familiar formulas rather than ambitious new concepts that could redefine the experience. A park can only hold steady for so long before stagnation becomes a defining characteristic rather than an occasional challenge. Even with these challenges, the park still holds the foundation for a meaningful revival if leadership chooses a clear direction. Its location and strong regional loyalty provide advantages many parks would value. What it lacks is a vision that ties its experiences in a way guests can identify. People want to feel purpose when they enter a place built on imagination, and uncertainty weakens that connection. SeaWorld San Diego must decide whether to pursue a future centered on thrill rides, conservation work, storytelling, or a mixture of these ideas. Without that decision, every season feels in transition, and every visit suggests a park waiting for its identity to return for many guests today. Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. Behind the thrill-heavy skyline of this Florida favorite lies a park feeling the strain of corporate turbulence and rising operational demands. For decades, it held a reputation as a destination that blended excitement with craftsmanship, offering guests something different from the traditional fantasy-driven approach of many nearby parks. Yet in recent years, the experience has begun to shift, and the signs of strain have grown harder to ignore. What was once a powerful contender in the region now faces challenges that reach deeper than seasonal crowd swings or ordinary operational hurdles, reshaping how guests see a park that once commanded strong loyalty. The roots of the struggle begin with the financial weight carried by the park's parent company, Busch Gardens. Tampa Bay relies heavily on large-scale attractions, expansive animal care infrastructure, and year-round operations that demand consistent investment. But the parent company has navigated years of debt pressure, leadership turnover, and shifting business strategies, resulting in fewer resources available for the long-term upgrades that keep a park competitive. When corporate priorities waver, even strong parks feel the impact. And guests quickly notice when aging attractions go without the modernization needed to match rising guest expectations in an increasingly competitive Florida market. Operational challenges compound these financial constraints. Maintenance schedules stretch longer, ride downtime grows more frequent, and seasonal staffing gaps affect everything from food service to animal exhibits. On busy days, these issues create bottlenecks and inconsistencies that diminish the seamless experience guests once counted on. Even food locations and shops show the signs of tightening budgets through simplified menus, reduced hours, or limited seasonal offerings. Each of these small details contributes to a broader impression that the park is trying to preserve stability rather than push forward with bold reinvention. In an industry where momentum is everything, stillness can quickly resemble decline. New attractions continue to appear, yet even these additions reveal the park's struggle to balance identity with urgency. Thrill rides remain a clear focus, but the overall thematic integration feels less cohesive than in earlier eras, and the ambitious level of detail once associated with the park has softened. Guests who remember the richness of past expansions sense the difference, noticing where thematic storytelling has thinned or where animal areas no longer receive the same level of enhancement that once distinguished the park from its competitors. These shifts affect not only guest satisfaction, but also the emotional connection that anchors a park's long-term relevance. Despite these setbacks, Busch Gardens Tampa Bay retains significant strengths. Its land, legacy, and unique blend of offerings provide foundations many parks would envy. Yet foundations alone cannot offset the rising expectations of modern theme park audiences or the rapid evolution of competing attractions across Florida. The park must decide whether to reclaim its signature attention to detail or settle into a slower path that risks losing ground. The next entry illustrates how even a powerful brand can falter when momentum fades. If you want to follow the full story as this situation unfolds, subscribe now. The signs of decline are growing clearer every month, and staying informed is the only way to understand which parks are recovering and which ones may disappear entirely. Universal's Islands of Adventure. The arrival of a massive new resort neighbor has cast a long shadow over a park once known for relentless momentum. For years, it delivered experiences that felt larger than life, anchored by bold design, massive attractions, and a sense of energy that pushed every other park in the region to raise its standards. Families and travelers made it a must-visit destination, and the park lived confidently on the reputation it earned. Yet recent years have shifted that momentum, placing the park in a difficult position as the larger industry moves into a new era marked by higher expectations, bigger investments, and intense competition that challenges everything Islands of Adventure once represented. The central issue facing the park is the massive gravitational pull of Universal's Epic Universe, a project so large and so heavily promoted that it reshapes how guests plan their trips. When a new multi-billion-dollar park announces lands built around cutting-edge technology, immersive environments, and next-generation attractions, older parks suddenly feel less essential. Islands of Adventure, once the jewel of the resort, now finds itself overshadowed by a newcomer that promises the future while it carries the weight of a past that no longer commands the same attention. Guests traveling only every few years now shift their focus, and the park's attendance patterns reflect that shift, with quieter seasons and unpredictable crowd movement. Operational strain adds another layer. Maintenance cycles stretch longer as resources are redirected to prepare for the opening of Epic Universe. Some areas of the park show visible aging, chipped paint, weathered facades, and attractions operating with reduced effects. Even reliable headliners occasionally face extended downtimes, reminding guests that maintaining an aging lineup requires investment that may not arrive quickly enough. Dining locations and shops cycle through cutbacks, seasonal closures, and simplified menus, all signs of a park working to balance its operations under tighter constraints. The park's identity also faces a challenge. When it opened, Islands of Adventure felt daring, experimental, and creatively driven. Today, new attractions must contend with intellectual property decisions that limit long-term flexibility. Major lands depend on licensing agreements, some of which complicate future development. As the industry shifts toward cohesive storytelling and deeply immersive environments, Islands of Adventure finds itself navigating creative boundaries that make reinvention harder than guests realize. Without clear direction, the experience can feel fragmented, with strong moments surrounded by areas waiting for attention. Yet the foundation remains powerful. The terrain, the layout, and several anchor attractions still hold emotional weight. But momentum determines survival, and momentum now favors the future, rising down the road. As the resort evolves, the question becomes whether Islands of Adventure can secure its place or whether it slowly becomes a supporting act to a larger vision. Disney's Epcot. Far from the optimism that defined its opening days, this iconic vision of the future now stands caught between unfinished ideas and shifting priorities. For decades, this place represented imagination brought to life, a blend of technology, culture, and storytelling that felt larger than any single attraction. Yet, in recent years, the park has faced a transformation that has stretched far longer, cost far more, and delivered far less than many expected. What was once a symbol of progress now stands in a complicated moment, caught between unfinished projects, shifting leadership priorities, and guests who increasingly wonder what the park truly represents in its current form. The extensive reimagining, announced with enormous optimism, was meant to usher in a new era of creativity. Instead, it became defined by construction walls, delayed timelines, and an experience that felt suspended in transition for several consecutive years. Guests arriving with memories of Epcot's earlier identity found themselves navigating long detours, closed pathways, and an atmosphere that lacked the cohesion the park once delivered effortlessly. Even when new attractions opened, their impact struggled to outweigh the feeling that the park remained incomplete. Momentum, once the hallmark of Disney's most visionary park, became difficult to maintain. Financial strain only intensified the challenge. Expansions ballooned in cost, and shifting corporate strategies forced leadership to evaluate which projects were necessary and which could be scaled back. Some plans were quietly altered, while others were canceled altogether. This uneven rollout created gaps in thematic consistency, leaving sections of the park feeling disconnected from the larger purpose that originally defined Epcot. Guests noticed these inconsistencies, and their expectations built from decades of Disney excellence grew harder to satisfy. The park's core identity has also become a point of debate. Epcot once stood for discovery, culture, and a forward-looking spirit grounded in optimism. Recent additions, while popular, shift the tone toward familiar entertainment brands, rather than educational storytelling. Some guests welcome the change, but others feel that the unique voice that made Epcot special has been softened. When a park built on clarity loses that clarity, every decision becomes magnified, and every new addition invites questions about direction and intent. Epcot faces mounting pressure from unpredictable attendance, frequent ride downtime, and the strain of sustaining festivals that now run throughout the year. These events draw crowds, but increasingly overshadow the park's original purpose, leaving its identity stretched between legacy and trend chasing. Yet its history, emotional pull, and iconic landmarks preserve a unique power few parks can match. True renewal is possible, but it demands clear leadership and focused investment rather than scattered fixes. The park's future will reveal whether genuine ambition can still guide a destination built on the promise of progress. Its next chapter depends on decisive action ahead, and that's the reality behind the numbers. 7 parks, millions of missing visitors, and an industry changing faster than anyone expected. But this story isn't over. Some parks will rise, others won't make it through the next season. So before you click away, tell me in the comments, which park do you think is in the most trouble? If you got value from this breakdown, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you want to stay ahead of the next wave of theme park shakeups, make sure you're subscribed, because we're just getting started.